Hello, friends. Welcome back to Men's Day Out. We've heard many cases about NRIs coming and getting married to women from India, and there have been stories about men betraying women. There have been special cells which have been created to take care of women who, have been deserted by NRI husbands. But nobody really talks about the kind of fraud and cheating that goes on with the NRI husbands as well. Today we have Rahul with us. Rahul is based out of US. He got married a couple of years ago, a very, very short-lived marriage, barely for a few days. And today he's stuck in India. He cannot go back. Rahul is going to share a lot of things with us today, especially, the trauma his family has gone through, losing his father, not being able to meet him because of false cases. So we welcome Rahul to our show. And unfortunately, as we all know, we cannot disclose identities of people when the cases are sub judice. So we will not have a face to Rahul while he is speaking. But definitely, we would like to hear from him today what he has gone through and what is the way forward for him from now on. Hi, Rahul. Welcome to our show.
Hey Arnaz, thank you for having me.
Thanks. So, Rahul, tell us why did you choose to marry a woman from India? I mean, you have been settled in US for such a long time now. What made you come back to India and get married to somebody from here?
Since I'm a US citizen, it was always an option to get married to another US citizen or a green card holder or someone local in the United States. And we had no such restriction with regard to race, gender, religion. So even if I would have married Chinese or from some other African American countries, my parents would be just fine. My logic with coming to India and marrying an Indian woman was two things. I was searching for someone who might be not that educated so that she can come to US, pursue her foreign studies, she can go ahead and work in the field she prefers, and that way she'll have a better life compared to what she had in India, and it would have a trickle down effect. So that was one of my first goal, that okay, I have had this ample of opportunities, let's share this with someone in India. And second was marrying someone to Indian of Indian origin. So she'll be able to better connect with my mom, dad, and my cousins in the United States. And that's where there's less of adjustment and more of understanding between different cultures and traditions, which are at a regional level from India. So those were the two main reasons why I thought, okay, let's marry
Right.
an
So how did you get acquainted
Indian.
with her? I believe it was through one of the matrimonial portals.
Yes. So we connected in early of 2019 through Shadi.com. That's where I received a request from her. That's how we connected. She sent me a text on WhatsApp. She gave me a call. And within a week, we might have spoken for maybe 10, 15 hours. We had a bunch of video calls and then we just connected. It was smooth for first week.
Right. And for how many months did you actually, court each other? Because you were not here, you were in the US. So, how did you guys actually decide to take this forward?
So this is where I got tricked into. So I'm not giving you the actual dates. For example, I got connected to her on 1st of January. On 8th of January, she already reached out to my parents, my cousins, asking that we have decided to getting married. And I had no clue that I had decided to getting married. So she already initiated that conversation with my family, stating I had agreed on it. And eventually it forced me indirectly of saying, okay, he likes me. So I was living in that bubble wherein everything is rosy and everything is fine. And within 7 to 10 days after we connected, she already booked a date with the registrar's office in Thane. or the late of March 2019. So it's less than a week of online connection and then maybe few phone calls here and there. And she already had given up a
So you're
newspaper
saying
ad that we am
you did not meet her in person?
to. So the first time I met her was when I came to India to marry her. So that was the first time. And before the marriage, I met her only twice for 5 to 6 hours each time. We in-person uh, meetings before we got married in the court.
Right. And at the time of marriage, that is before actually, tying the legal knot, what were the discussions with regards to, her moving to US, her visa application? Were these things clarified initially? Because, when such matters take place, it is not possible for you to take the bride with you immediately because of visa restrictions.
Exactly. So this was made very clear in my Shadi.com profile as well as when I had multiple conversation with her, like video calls, phone calls. I've literally sent her the links from US Citizenship and Immigration Services, which says it takes anywhere from 6 months to 18 months to get a US permanent residency if you marry to a US citizen. So I had sent her newspaper articles, legal documentation, as well as explained her that if you marry me in March, if things go smooth and if President Trump doesn't impose any restriction, you should be good by December. Expect it to last until 18 months and you will eventually become a US permanent resident and you will move in. And until then, I'll keep visiting India every 4 months, that is thrice a year, which I did. For the first time, I visited in March for a month. Then I visited in September for a month, and I was planning to come back in December, but I'm now literally stuck.
Right, right. So we'll come to that
Yeah,
now.
so it's no
So
point.
the marriage took
So
place.
all the visa procedures were made clear.
Yes. So the marriage took
Yeah,
place
yeah.
in March 2019, and
Mhm,
as you both had decided, you went back to the US. What happened after
mhm.
that?
Yeah. So got married in late March 2019. After the registrar's marriage, I went back to the United States with my mom and dad, and I couldn't apply for her tourist as well as fiance visa because it's already been denied twice in the past. So it's no point in applying for something that's already been rejected when you're getting your US permanent residency. So me and my parents moved back to United States from April until June, wherein we had lot of arguments, like we, as in me and my wife, over WhatsApp, because some of her colleagues and pundits and babas told her that US का visa तो एक महीने में मिल जाता है. But what those pundits and babas don't understand, it's not a visitors and tourist visa. It's a US permanent residency, and people spend and slog 15, 20 years to get one. It's not like and get your permanent residency. It's not that easy. So we had quite a bit of conversation back and forth. I spoke to her, and that's when she had threatened me of filing a divorce. I spoke to her lawyer and explained him that you and sent him the legal documentation from the immigration website, and then he managed to convince my wife that it's a permanent residency and not some kind of.
Short-term visa.
Eventually things, yeah, it's not a short-term visa, it's long-term. So eventually things got appeared to get fine by June or early July, and in September I decided to come back to India to meet her and resolve all her queries or concerns in person, because she was thinking what her if her permanent residency gets denied. And our logic was, and even my lawyers told her, that there is 0% chance of it getting denied unless and until you have some criminal activities or terroristic activities. If you have had no crime in your life and you have been a citizen of a good moral standards, you should be fine. But she wanted me to guarantee it. And I'm like, how am I supposed to guarantee it? No one can guarantee that. Even Shah Rukh Khan's visa can get denied. So, and it's not like I can call President Trump and say, "Isko visa de do." It doesn't work like that.
Right.
So that's where all the mix up and the argument.
Right. So then you ended up coming back to India in September 2019. which is when things got worse,
Uh-huh.
and you never expected that you would be stuck in India until now. So just share
Exactly.
details about that incident.
Yes. So from September until the early October, I spent good time with her. We had a lot of fun. We went out for trips around India. And on the day Uber my flight back to the United States, I had already called my Uber. I had already transferred my luggage into the car, and I was about to leave in 10 minutes. And that's when she locked herself, in a room and started threatening. So now I was in a limbo. If agar suicide kar liya, to bhi banda phas gaya. I'll be in a problem. And if I leave, then also I'll be in a problem because she might frame me in some other charges. So what ended up doing is canceling the Uber, canceled my flight back to US, and then I went to talk to her and make her understand. Okay, I can spend one more week with you, but you have to understand that I have a job and a mom and dad to take care of, and I have to go back, and you will come back in few months. And that's when she took away my US passport, my OCI card, and other immigration documents and luggage, and kicked me out of the house and requested the security officers in the community to not allow me in the society. And next thing I know, domestic violence, criminal breach of trust, intimidation, and bunch of other charges on me and my mom and dad who were at that moment in the United States, as well as my sister and her kids and husband, who have met her only once or twice, not even stayed with her for more than 2 to 3 hours.
So basically, she implicated all of them in
All of them.
domestic violence charges against.
Exactly. And as far as what I'm aware of, violence did violence on her via WhatsApp. So I don't know how can one do domestic violence via WhatsApp, or how can my mom and dad torture her when they are in United States and she was in India, and how was that even accepted as per the legal definition? And she has no evidence to submit whenever the courts have asked for.
Right. So what happened after that? You would have gone to court because it would be a non-billable charge against you. So how did you manage that?
Exactly. 3 weeks, I had no clue what to do because even though I'm born in India, it's been years I've moved out and I don't know how the legal system or the judicial system works here, and I was all alone. So for a few weeks, I was just running around and trying to figure out, talking to different lawyers, anticipatory bail in sessions court. And for me, my mom, dad, as well as my sister's family. And that's when, while the hearing was in process, that's when I came to know that my dad has suffered a brain hemorrhage, which was a result of the non-availability of the controlled medication that he was supposed to take. So this is how it was. Whenever I come to India, certain set of medications which are banned in the United States, but those are legal in India. And my dad has stayed for 75 years in India before moving to the US. So all his medications, I have to get the doctor's approval, customs approval, and take it to the United States for him. Those are controlled substances, and my wife was withholding those medications. I even have a phone call recordings wherein I'm requesting her, you want to keep my passport, do it, but give me the medication. I need to send it to my dad as soon as possible. But she paid no heed and gave no response to that.
Right. And you had in fact
And
posted.
eventually my dad suffered a stroke, brain hemorrhage. Yeah,
Yes, yes. You
yeah, go ahead. Arya.
posted a picture of your dad in the ICU, and you said
Uh-huh.
it was the last time you saw him on the video call, and that would have been really, really traumatic for
Yes,
you.
that's correct. The last time I saw him on video call was while my session in the Thane Sessions Court, in front of the judge, and we were actually showing them. So I had requested judge to allow me to visit my dad because he was on ventilator and doctor had given him 72 hours to survive. And we had showed that video to the judge, and then my wife started claiming कि इसका बाप तो नाटक कर रहा है, मेकअप बेकअप लगा के सब सेटिंग करके रखा है कि उनके बेटे को बुलाना चाहता है. Even though we got the letters from the agencies, US embassy, hospital, as well as did a video call live, it didn't matter to them. My wife's word was the only thing that mattered to the judge. And when my father passed away, around when I was in the hearing in the sessions court, that's when we notified them that he has passed away. And then the judge tells me, anyways, he has passed away. What's the point of going back now? He's not alive. So when he was alive, we were like natak kar raha hai, and when he's dead, he's like already mar chuka hai, jaake kya karega. And the judicial system and the way they just took my wife's word for granted, and they didn't even consider the letters from the US embassy and from as well as the other authorized agencies which declared that my dad was on ventilator and now that he has passed away. So all those documents, according to my wife, are fraudulent. And judge ended up believing her, but I don't know how to just even talk about that. It pisses me off.
Right. So where is the case now, Rahul? What does she want, and how would this really come to an end?
We have had 5 sessions of mediations as of now. 4 sessions in the session court and 1 in the high court. Initially, she started demanding 12 crores cash along with the property, which she negotiated down to 5 crore cash and property that belongs to me, my dad, my mom, as well as my brother in the United States. She needs all the property of each one of us, as well as cash.
Yes, right. And until then,
Definitely not agreeing on paying her.
She's not willing to let you go back to the US.
Yes.
And, I mean, it is a very tricky situation, for a marriage that has not lasted beyond a few days. And, the husband is responsible to take care of the wife until she decides to amicably settle it with one-time alimony.
Yes, and her one-time alimony is so huge, and because I have done nothing wrong, and none of my parents or those accused have done anything wrong. In fact, we are the victims. We are suffering the losses, and she has taken away and forcefully taken the possession of property belonging to my family. So she literally owns everything. I am on the road, jobless, dependent on random people for survival, for food, clothing, and shelter. And now she is demanding 5 crores alimony for me. And the alternative option she gave us is either I can pay her all that, or I have to permanently settle down in India with her and bear a child. So those are the only 2 options with me. Stay with her, have a kid, and permanently settle in India, and she'll keep withholding my passport until she pleases, or she needs cash and property of each and every member of my family members. And she will continue to withhold my US passport, and he is comfortable and pleased to let me go. So it's like she's asking for a slave in short, and want to withhold me in India forever unless her demands are fulfilled. So I don't know what she filed dowry charges on us, but what kind of extortion is this? You are holding another human being against the will. And we raised this concern in the high court with the police and other official, and they are like, kuch reasonable amount pe settle kar lo. What BS logic is this when you know that the woman on the other side is wrong, submitted the documents in the court that are forged. She has forged the signature of the advocate as well as the other government official. She has the power to not let me go indefinitely. And I'm not willing to compromise on that. I'm going to fight. I want to fight against the system, but it's literally taking a toll on my physical and mental and emotional health. When am I going to get the justice? When is it going to stop? Because I'm away from my family, away from my home, away from everything. I'm away from my natural environment.
Right. And I believe you have also lost your job because you've been away for such a long time. So
yes, I've been away for years.
So as we've been discussing, and you're not the only one, Rahul, because there have been many other men who have been trapped in these cases for years and decades, and the judiciary has completely failed one gender, because everything is about the woman and her rights. So, I think these stories are very important for us, to tell the world, because unless you go through it, you're not going to realize the trauma that you face. And I'm very happy that, you've actually come and, shared this story with all of us and a lot of people who are planning to marry in India. It is an eye opener for them to understand how the system works after marriage. I thank you,
Yes.
Rahul, for joining us. And we will follow your story, and we will keep publishing it, for people to realize how, a marriage that hasn't lasted for more than few days can actually hold a man trapped forever. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Thank you, and I wish you all the best. And I really hope you come out of all the problems as soon as possible.
Thank you, Arnaz.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.